Hi everybody, thanks for joining me today. I'm going to talk a little bit today about how to transfer a photograph using the carbon method to watercolor paper. So there's quite a few different ways to get a portrait onto watercolor paper. One is just freehand drawing. And if you're a good draftsman and you can take a photograph or a person and draw them, that's great. I would recommend drawing it on a piece of paper first, the actual size that you want to paint it at, and then again carbon it, transfer it to your watercolor paper, because you don't want to erase on watercolor paper. It does disturb the fibers of the paper, so be pretty careful with that. Also, I'm going to mention you need to have pretty clean hands when you start, no oils or anything on your hands. Then the other way to get this photograph onto the watercolor paper or the drawing is to project it using a digital or a slide projector, and you can just put that picture in there, project it to your size you want onto your size of paper you want, and basically trace it that way. That works as well. You can do a grid, which is dividing your photograph up into different segments and then transferring that grid onto your watercolor paper and drawing it that way. I'm going to provide a link for you in doing that. It takes quite a bit of setup and time, and I never use that method, so I'm not super comfortable on how to teach it. I can teach it, but I'd rather have somebody who's really doing it all the time teach you, and so she will, I'll give you a link on that on my website. And the other way is to trace it. And so what you want to do, and that's how we're going to do it today, we're going to actually trace this so we can just move quickly into watercolor painting. The materials that you need for this is a photograph the size that you want, and this is tricky if you're doing a big photograph, obviously a big painting, but you want the size that you're going to use. You want the photograph to be the actual size you're going to use to put onto your watercolor paper. So you want that photograph, you want your watercolor paper handy, you want some blue tape, a pencil with some fairly hard lead or a pen, and then a charcoal pencil or a big fat leaded pencil with soft lead. Okay, and what you want to do is you want to start with your photograph. This is my cute little son here, and we're going to do a lesson on him later. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take that photograph and have a very smooth surface. You don't want to have any lumps or bumps under your surface, or you don't want to be doing this on top of your watercolor paper right now. You want to have a very smooth, non-toothed surface on which to do this. So you're going to flip your photograph over, and the photograph can be in black or white. And you can see that I've already started to do this on the back of my paper. What this is I take my fat pencil or charcoal pencil and basically cover the whole back of the paper where the person is on the front side, and fill in, going back and forth onto the back of the paper with the pencil. This is basically creating a carbon. When you do it all this way, you're going to turn it and you're going to do it 90 degrees again and fill in all of those white little places on the back of your paper. You want to make sure that you get it filled in very, very well. A lot of carbon on the back, because this is a detailed drawing that you're going to want to have on the front. So you want to fill in all the areas and not have any gaps of white. So it takes a little bit of time. That's why I did it beforehand, because I didn't want you to have to sit here and wait while I did all that. And I'm not super good at editing videos. So, okay, so I have basically the whole image filled in on the back, okay? So then what you're gonna do is you're gonna bring your watercolor paper over here, place your image wherever you want it on your watercolor paper, and using blue tape or some type of masking tape, nothing that has a lot of tact to it, you're gonna just tape the top. You want to be able to look underneath, but you do not want this image to move around on your paper. You want tape that doesn't have a lot of tack to it so that it's easy to pull off and it doesn't damage the watercolor paper. Okay, the other thing you want to do is not do a lot of scraping or moving around on this picture, because anytime you do something on this picture, you might get smudges back here, and sometimes it's not very fun to remove those. So I have a nice point on this lead, and it's a fairly hard lead. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to go over every detail of this young man's face and basically trace the image onto the watercolor paper with pressure, and that carbon on the back is going to then become on the front of this watercolor paper. Now don't press super hard, you don't want a dent in your paper, you just want the image transferred. So I'm going to start with his eyes here. I'm going to go on the inside of his eye, and I'm going to just trace that white part. Okay, the white part's traced. And make sure you follow all the lines. Make sure you follow every reflection as well. Here's the crease of his eye. All right. Some eyelashes. This is just an indication. I don't need to have a lot of detail, but definitely want to have some of the areas transferred so that I don't have a lot of guesswork to do. Okay. I'm going to move over the other eye, the white area, and the pupil, eyelashes, at the crease. Now, what do we do about the shadows? Well, I want to actually paint the shadows in, and so I am going to, once I finish the eye and all the big details, I'm actually going to trace those shadows onto his face. Okay, pushing somewhat hard. There's his ear here, coming around, showing the line of his chin. Here's a shadow down here. I'll have to draw the shirt in later, but I can freehand that. I'm doing his smile. Now I'm just doing this kind of randomly, but you'll want to just move around your picture, getting every detail that you possibly can get in there. Here's this lip, and here's that shadow again. Shadow here. Very nice and soft shadow there. A smile line coming around. Down here. His teeth, I'm going back to his teeth, and again, I'm kind of jumping around. You may not want to jump around. You may want to be a little bit more methodical with this. Okay, there's a smile line. Going to make sure we get the nostril shape in there. The shadow again. Eyelashes, very important. Okay, all right. And then, of course, the hair can be just very generally filled in, because you can paint that a little bit better later. You can find the details on that a little later, because you don't want to have a lot of detail in the hair. You can, though. You can get as detailed with this drawing as you want. I'm just giving myself some outlines, some guidelines. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift this up, and I'm going to see how it transferred. Okay, there's a nice outline started right there. It's hard to see on this camera, but I can also see areas that I may have missed or that need to be darkened up, and I can go in and fill in those areas. And in that way, you're going to be able to transfer that drawing right onto your paper. It's taped up there, so when you set it back down, it's again right in the exact same spot, and you can add the details that you may have missed before. And like I said, you want to make sure you get all of the features in, as well as the shadows. We've got some hair up here, and then his hairline comes around like this. Okay, a little bit of hair over here. And then I'm doing the light areas, I'm going to be able to look at my photo often, so I'm not super worried about how detailed this is on the hair. His hair looks funny, but that's basically pretty close to all I need. I can see that I need just a little bit more of his chin here. And now that gives me a really nice reference point for all of the features of his face. I've got his eyes, nose, mouth, teeth, lips, ears, outline, and now I've got a really nice point to which I can begin to build my watercolor painting on. Okay, so everybody enjoy that and have a great day. Thanks.